Hey everybody, mel0n here. Welcome back to another episode of the mel0n Review. Today we're going to be wrapping up part 2 of my review of the WAIZOWL Lightning 60HE. Now, as I talked about in my unboxing and first impressions video, this is the first rapid trigger keyboard I've used, and I was a little bit skeptical as to how much of a true difference rapid trigger makes, but it turns out I have been really sleeping on boards like the Lightning 60HE, specifically given its price. Now, before we get into it, I did want to say a big thank you again to WAIZOWL, who was kind enough to send out the Lightning 60HE for review. WAIZOWL was cooking up a bunch of new stuff, so be sure to keep an eye out for some more WAIZOWL videos coming out very soon. Now, as always, regardless of a free discounted unit or affiliation with a particular brand, reviews here will always be unbiased. If you're looking for a particular topic, timestamps will be available down in the video description, and this video will also be fully subtitled. Now, before we get into it, if you enjoyed the review of the Lightning 60HE and you want to see more reviews like this, be sure to drop a like on the video and get subscribed to the channel. As I just mentioned, I will have a lot of videos covering upcoming WAIZOWL products in the near future, so get subscribed if you want to see more videos like this. Alright, let's go ahead and get right into it. First off, we're going to talk about the performance tech of the Lightning 60HE, and then we'll dive into the gaming performance, the type of performance, and we'll talk about the other aspects of this board. Alrighty, now in terms of the rapid trigger implementation here on the Lightning 60HE, this board is using the Raisha Gen 1, if I'm not mistaken, magnetic switches. Now, this name may be familiar to you if you watch my reviews of the Pulsar X2H and X2V2, as those mice were using the Raisha optical switches in those mice, which Pulsar was just calling their Pulsar opticals. But if you didn't know, this is actually Razer. Razer is just an affiliation of Raisha, and Raisha makes the switches for them. So the same Raisha switches you see in this keyboard are going to be the same ones you see in a lot of Razer's rapid trigger boards. They're just bended differently, have different colors in terms of their stems. Now, the Raisha switches here on the Lightning 60HE are magnetic, as I just mentioned. These switches allow for 48 unique points of actuation from 0.2 millimeters to 3.8 millimeters. You can also set the rapid trigger to enable or disable on any points between 0.1 millimeters and 0.36 millimeters. Now, of course, with rapid trigger, there is a lot of customization to this, and a lot of the implementation is going to heavily depend on your personal profiles. If you want the keyboard to feel a little lighter, you can set it to a much lighter actuation point. If you want it to be heavier in certain buttons, you can set it to a much heavier actuation point. There is a lot of customization here, of course, but I will talk about that a little later in this video. Alrighty, now in terms of the gaming experience, obviously the adjustable actuation here on the Lightning 60HE makes a massive difference when it comes to gaming performance. Coming from a standard HyperX Alloy Origins core, moving to the Lightning 60HE is like night and day in terms of performance. The rapid trigger also makes a huge difference in performance across the board, most notably in games where you have to perform very specific movements or very precise movements. For me, those games were Valorant and Splitgate. In Valorant, the ability to pretty much just stop on a dime was very helpful and was massively helpful in terms of my consistency in game. The ability to anti-strafe and mirror strafe a lot faster was also very helpful. It was also very helpful for Splitgate, which is a very fast game, and I noticed the Lightning 60HE's biggest impact in terms of Splitgate was pixel walking, or better known as triple portaling. I always had issues on my older keyboards of getting the right distance between moving from the one portal to the second portal, but on the Lightning 60HE, because the actuation is so precise and you can pretty much have the key response within a millimeter, it makes it very easy to go from one portal to the other, so it's very helpful for consistently triple portaling. There is, of course, also a universal benefit to all games where, due to the faster actuation points with the rapid trigger on all your inputs, anything related to the keyboard is going to be significantly faster. There will be some variance, of course, depending on your actuation points and that kind of stuff, but pretty much across the board universally, you will have much faster response time on your keyboard for anything keyboard related in games. So using ability, jumping, strafing, that kind of stuff is going to be significantly faster here on the Lightning 60HE. As I mentioned before, this is my first time using a rapid trigger keyboard, and coming from an ancient HyperX keyboard, the difference between that board and the Lightning 60HE is night and day, but I really underestimated the actual increase in performance a rapid trigger board can give you, because going back to my old keyboard, I feel super sluggish, my movements aren't accurate. I'm pretty much just rapid trigger pilled now because I won't use anything else for gaming, just because it's so much better on a rapid trigger board. The only quote-unquote issue, so to speak, I have with the Lightning 60HE is that there definitely is an adjustment period, because you have to get accustomed to the much lighter or much heavier actuation points depending on how you set them. I commonly found myself accidentally jumping quite a bit, particularly in Valorant, just because I set the sensitivity on the spacebar too low. There is, of course, still a working period, but the working period is 100% worth it in my opinion, given the insane increase in performance you can get from the Lightning 60HE. Alright, now in terms of the typing experience here on the Lightning 60HE, overall the board feels really great to type on. Again, the rapid trigger tech here can play a big role, since you can adjust the actuation point of the switches, so you can make the board feel heavier or lighter depending on your preferences and your typing style. I will say, however, the Raisha magnetic switches themselves are a little on the heavier side compared to the Epilmaker Wisteria linear switches I have in my TH80 SE that are around a 45 gram force, if I'm not mistaken. The Lightning 60HE switches are significantly heavier. I would say more around the 50 to 55 gram force actuation weight, but again, since you can adjust the actuation point, you don't necessarily need to press the keys all the way down like you would have to do on a traditional keyboard. You can make the keyboard feel significantly lighter with the adjustable actuation point, which is a really nice feature. The acoustics of the Lightning 60HE is also very solid. If you put the actuation point towards the top of the switch, the board is essentially silent, as the only time there's any audio feedback from the switches is when the switches bottom out, but even when they do bottom out, they're still quite quiet. The acoustics are also greatly improved by the internal padding and the gasket mounting keyboard plate inside the Lightning 60HE. I'll give you a little sound test here. But overall, the Lightning 60HE felt great for typing. The only issue I had with it, so to speak, is that the board is a 60% layout, which is a little small for my hands in terms of typing, but since this board is a more gaming focused board, I understand why they went with the slimmer 60% layout. If you're accustomed to the 60% layout for typing and you have smaller hands, I'm sure the board will be completely fine, but for my hands, it was just a little too small for me to reliably type on. I prefer the 75 and 80% boards I have in my collection for typing, as they're just a little more comfortable. Another area where WAIZOWL has done a really great job here on the Lightning 60HE is in terms of the ergonomics. Now, I will say for a 60% layout board, the tilt of the board is slightly more aggressive than you'd expect, but it is still very comfortable to game and type on. One small nitpick I do have, however, is that the tilt of the Lightning 60HE isn't adjustable, nor does the board come with any kind of extra taller feet to tilt the board a little more forward, but since the ergonomics of the boards are pretty solid out of the box, this isn't that big of an issue, but it would have been nice to see some way to adjust the tilt of the board. In terms of build quality and QC, overall the Lightning 60HE is very well built. As I talked about in my unboxing video, while the board does have a great feel to it, the base of the board is plastic and the upper frame is aluminum. I do wish the whole thing was aluminum just because it does feel a little jarring having two different textures, but the Lightning 60HE does still feel very solid regardless of the differing of material. There's no creaking or flexing across the entire board. All the individual keys in the 60HE also feel very good and they're very well stabilized, and all the keys feel consistent across the entire board. So overall, it is a very well QC'd board. Again, my only kind of nitpick about this board is I do wish the entire thing was aluminum instead of the bottom being made out of plastic and the top being made of aluminum. Another highlight of the Lightning 60HE here is the lighting. Now, this board does have full RGB backlighting with a ton of customizability options in the software. Now, as I said in my unboxing video, I'm not the biggest fan of RGB on keyboards or anything for that matter, as the RGB kind of overpowers everything else about the product, but the RGB implementation here on the Lightning 60HE is actually very nice. It's very tasteful. It's not super overpowering like it does on other products. The lighting also looks gorgeous with these runic keycaps, especially if you set it to like red, green, or purple, it looks especially good. There is also, of course, a lot of other options in the software, a bunch of different RGB modes. I just kept mine to solid colors, but if you want to do waves or other things, there's a bunch of options in the software, and you can customize the RGB to look pretty much however you want. In terms of connectivity here in the Lightning 60HE, this is only going to be a USB-C board. There is no wireless or Bluetooth connectivity, but given that this is a rapid trigger performance board, which is only usable over USB-C, this makes sense having just only USB-C connection here on the Lightning 60HE. The included USB cable is also really good, feels really great in the hand, has a nice good paracord wrapping. The coiling is very solid and has stayed consistent over testing. It does look really nice in combination with the board. The one little nitpick I do have about the connectivity though, I did feel like the USB-A side of the cable was a little shorter than it was supposed to be, and I did have to kind of move a couple things around and wire it under my computer to get it to my computer because it was kind of short. Realistically, this isn't that big of a deal, but it would be nice to see WAIZOWL maybe add an extra foot or something to this cable just because it does come in a little short, at least in my case, but that is a very minimal thing. Next up, let's talk about the software here on the Lightning 60HE. Now, I previously praised WAIZOWL for their software on the OGM cloud, as it was a very lightweight implementation that worked very well, and I'm happy to say the same thing goes for the experience and the software on the Lightning 60HE. The software is very similar to the software we found for the OGM cloud, very lightweight, very easy to use. There is full customization for the keyboard layout and the function rows, tons of options for RGB, a full macro editor, and of course a sensitivity tab for setting the actuation points of the switch and adjusting the enable and disable points of the rapid trigger tech on these switches. You can adjust this for the entire board or only specific keys. As I mentioned earlier, I had a couple issues with accidentally jumping in Valorant because I set the sensitivity to be too high, so you can lower the sensitivity on the spacebar or any other keys you're accidentally actuating while keeping all the other ones the same. But overall, the software for the Lightning 60HE is very good, very lightweight, very easy to use, which is all you can really ask for software. The only thing I'd like to see improved is that it's a shame that the software isn't the same for both the WAIZOWL mice and the keyboard. Instead of having two separate programs, it'd be nice to see one hybridized program, but again, this is a very minimal thing, but overall the software is excellent, very well implemented, and very easy to use, just like it was in the WAIZOWL Cloud. Alrighty, well, in closing, overall, I'm very impressed with the WAIZOWL Lightning 60HE. Again, this is my first time trying a rapid trigger board, so the performance is stellar coming from an older keyboard, but rapid trigger tech aside, the rest of the Lightning 60HE is very good, very well put together. The board feels great, has solid build quality, the keycaps look great, the typing experience is solid, although a little on the heavier side. Gaming performance is of course stellar with the rapid trigger tech and all the other cool stuff on this board. RGB implementation is very tasteful, feels very good. Sizing of the board is perfect for gaming use case, a little weak for typing, but again, this is a gaming focused board, so that is understandable. Connectivity is also great, the included cable is also very solid, and of course, as I mentioned in my unboxing video, this board does come with the benefit of coming with a carrying case, which is very good quality, which is a really nice thing to see that other boards of this kind do not come with. The only quote-unquote issues I have with this board are the lack of height adjustment and the fact that the base is plastic and the top is aluminum. I do wish the whole thing was aluminum, but these are very minimal nitpicks. Overall, the board is extremely solid. Now, since I don't have any other rapid trigger boards, I can't really speak to how well the RT tech is implemented here on the Lightning 60HE. I will do my best to get my hands on some other RT tech boards and do some comparison testing so I can see how good the Lightning 60 truly is compared to other RT boards, but that'll be a video for another time. Now, one edge I do know that the Lightning 60HE has against a lot of the other RT boards on the market is the price. This board retails for $99 USD to around $129.99 USD depending on your retailer. So in my eyes, the Lightning 60HE fulfills that more budget-oriented price to performance area, which is my personal favorite area for a product, very much like the Keychron mice, being very cheap but also having very good performance. The Lightning 60HE is following into that same vein, and it does a stellar job across the board. Again, I can't compare it directly to other RT boards. From my experience, this board performs extremely well, and as I talked about my performance, I'm pretty much just RT pilled now. I can't go back to my old linear keyboard because it just feels so sluggish and slow. I am stuck on this board, and I will probably be stuck on this board for quite a while. So overall, props to WAIZOWL. Just like I said when I talked about the OGM Cloud, I was really impressed with that mouse, and I am also extremely impressed here with the Lightning 60HE. They've done a fantastic job here on this board. It's a great board with a lot of really great performance features that comes in at a very budget-oriented price, which is really nice to see. So if you're in the market for an RT board, you want to go for something a little more on the budget side, you want to pay the Wooting price tag, I'd highly recommend you check out the WAIZOWL Lightning 60HE. It is a great little board with some great performance. If you want to learn more about the Lightning 60HE, I will have a couple product links down in the video description for you all. But that is going to be everything for today's episode of the mel0n review. If you made it this far, thank you very much for watching. If you want to see more videos like this, be sure to get subscribed so you don't miss more future reviews. As I mentioned before, I will be talking about a lot of WAIZOWL products in the near future, so be sure to get subscribed so you don't miss those videos. If you'd like to support the channel, you can become a member here on YouTube. It's only $2 Canadian per month, and that is the best way to directly support the channel. You can also support me by using my affiliate codes and links over at Mech Keys, Lethal Gaming Gear, Raven Mousepads, TJ Exclusives, and Potent Gaming Gear to help support the channel and save yourself some money on your orders. If you want to check out one of my other reviews, you can check out my review of the WAIZOWL OGM Cloud. It is a modern successor to the SteelSeries Sensei 10 with some great performance and solid features, just like the Lightning 60HE. Thank you again for watching. I greatly appreciate it, and I'll catch you guys all in the next episode of the mel0n review. Peace.